little lengthy, but I'll give you a sense of what I think, and you can just have us on mute in the background until we get started.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
But we do have a quorum of the Capital Facilities Board. It is after 3:30. We are streaming into the cybersphere on YouTube so that the public has access to this meeting. And I think it's fair to say we can get started. And then Linda, if you've texted Vita and she can join us, then she can join us.
Okay, I sent a text off. We'll wait and see.
Sure. Bill, you can take it away.
Okay, I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Capital Facilities Corporation, dated Tuesday, April 7th, 2020. I guess our first order of business is public comment. And we'll open it up for any public content that we may have. I don't hear anybody.
We
So-
didn't receive any emails for public comment either. So
So I guess we can conclude that we have no public comment at this time. And we'll move on to comments on the agenda items. Nothing there either. Okay. So we'll move right, I guess, right into the agenda and start with the minutes of last year's meeting on May 16th, 2019.
Bill, before we get started, we should probably take roll call of the corporation.
I'm sorry,
Yeah, I don't know if that was on the, hey, there's Vita.
that was not on the agenda.
Yep. We'll get it on the agenda next time, but we should take roll.
Okay,
Jessica, if you can take roll call of the board members.
Okay, Linda Cordero,
Here,
Matt Beecher,
Here?
John Barrissey. Did I pronounce your name right?
Yeah, but he's not a board member.
Not a board member.
Oh, he's
Yeah,
not.
but-
Okay, sorry about that. Bill Kennedy
here,
and Vida Flores.
Here.
Great, thank you. I'll
you
go ahead
having
and
trouble
mute myself.
hearing?
Am I having trouble hearing?
No,
Oh,
I was talking to Vita.
sorry.
I couldn't get an audio. I don't know what the heck was wrong. So then all of a sudden I got an audio. So I have no idea. Can you hear me?
Yes?
yeah, I hear you.
Okay, then we're good.
Yep.
We're good. All right, thank you. We're ready to go then.
All right, that's the roll call. So now we're ready for review of the minutes.
Okay, we can review the minutes of last year's meeting. Did everyone have a chance to look those over? I think they were part of the agenda that was handed out over the computer.
Right.
Anybody
Mhm.
have any questions or comments on that?
I have no questions.
No questions.
Seem to be in order.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to accept those minutes.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Okay, they passed. Okay, it looks like we're gonna move on to 3.2, which is the resolution number 19-1. It's a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Santa Maria Bonita Capital Facilities Corporation authorizing the execution and delivery of a ground lease, a lease agreement, an assignment agreement, and a trust agreement with respect to the execution and delivery of Santa Maria Bonita School District refunding certificates of participation, evidencing principal and an aggregate amount of not to exceed 18 million, and authorizing the execution of necessary documents and certificates and related actions, period.
Well, thank you, Bill.
I'll
That-
turn it back to Matt.
That title is like a board ad in and of itself.
Yes,
But it does contain all of the steps that I would summarize in conversation with you, just to introduce the item and get the intention behind the item. But I do have on the line with us today, John Barrissey of Raymond James. He's acted as the district's underwriter for over a decade now, through various financings and refinancings, both as certificates and participation and general obligation bonds. And so he's very familiar with how we do business and the structure of these financings. So John, if you could just kind of walk us through your presentation and share the information you have for us.
Yep, I sure can. Good afternoon, and thanks, Matt. And I will go ahead now and start the share screen option. And let's see if we can't make this work. Do you have that? Can you see it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Nice.
cool. Very good. Okay, so this combination, we're going to just discuss for the order of business. Matt, would you like me to just cover the COP since it's with respect to this particular meeting?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay. All right. So on the current slide here, the district has two outstanding, what we call certificates of participation or leases. One is the 2013, which is the subject of what we'll be discussing today. And last year, the district also did something similar, taking into account refunding a lease purchase agreement with the 2019 certificate of participation. So what we're going to be discussing here today is very similar to what the district did last year to take advantage of lower interest rates. And I'll walk through kind of where the market is, and you may have some questions just on what's been happening with respect to municipal bonds with all the volatility and the COVID crisis here, and how that's impacted municipal rates and borrowings. But in any event, we have two outstanding, and we're going to be taking a look at refinancing the 2013 COPs here that go out to 2033, as you can see on this particular slide. So turning to the next slide here, this gives you just some gross estimates of preliminary estimates of the refunding and what the savings could potentially be. So we're taking a look at refinancing, issuing about 16 million, 16.2 million to refinance the outstanding callable and potentially non-callable lease obligations. That currently generates approximately a little over 400,000. Is the minimum kind of threshold that we were looking at with respect to this. The next couple of slides, and we've broken, before I get to the market information, that'll be important to highlight, but we have samples of the cost of issuance here at the bottom, underwriter's discount, bond insurance, and additional proceeds, just a rounding amount that ultimately ends up getting put into the cost of issuance item at the 200,000 there. And these are all estimates likely to be a little bit lower than what you see here as far as the costs go, but they're consistent with what the district has had in the past for these respective line items. Before I get into the market and where that's currently kind of heading and has been over the past several weeks, any questions on either the certificates that we're refinancing or savings, the costs, any of those items before I move on?
Nope.
No, I was more interested in the market, so it'll be interesting to see what's happening there.
Yeah, that's definitely been the most interesting part about this. So you can see, check out all the way to the right. I mean, that is
yes,
just,
yes.
there's something obviously going on.
Uh,
So yeah, it's been pretty amazing. But these are tax exempt bonds rates. So we're going to go through the tax exempt market, and then I'm going to talk about the taxable market second, because that's going to be applicable for the financing that you're looking at. But just to give you a sense, this does correlate similarly to the taxable market, where, in the end of March, we saw just this massive spike in interest rates. And then the next week it went, severely lower down to this point. Then we saw another knee jerk last week. And since last Thursday, we've seen a nice little downturn, which is good. So rates are coming back down again, which is a good thing for districts out there that are trying to issue bonds or refinance bonds on a tax exempt basis. So that's tax exempt rates. And what we are going to be looking at doing for your particular transaction, this is a little more of a confusing state of mind for where taxable rates are for bonds. Because when you take a look at this, you see how the rates, they went up, but it's not as significant as the other slide. And, generally speaking, rates are still very, very low on a taxable basis, which you have to look at doing a taxable refinancing for this COP and also the GO bonds that we'll be talking about at the board meeting tomorrow for a couple of reasons. Primarily being that in 2017, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act removed the ability to refinance in advance municipal bonds on a tax exempt basis. So you can only do it with taxable bonds. So what's good is you can see here, the taxable rates are generally really low. The problem we're having and what's causing volatility and why we will, we're getting this financing, presenting it for approval tonight so we can have it ready to go once the market stabilizes and corrects itself. The rates are low, which are the baseline for which these bonds are sold, but there's also what's called a credit spread that's attached. And you've probably heard that the corporate bond market has been very, very active. Maybe if you watch CNBC or any other major financial news station, and those credit spreads are up about 2 percentage points or 2% from where we were when we first started talking to Matt about this.
Yeah.
And that has caused a point in time where we wouldn't proceed with the refinancing at this point just because of those credit spreads jumped significantly, basically within 2 days. And they haven't come down at this point. They've come down about half, which is great, but we needed to come down about another 75 basis points or 0.75%, for that for this to move forward with the the levels that we talked about on that other slide. So we've come down about 125, 1.25% from the over 2.5 or so that we went up. We need another 0.75%, to get to the point where we need to be to move forward. But having it all these documents approved doesn't lock or force the district to do anything at all, or the corporation. It's just being prepared, take advantage, because you can see how quickly these rates have changed. And if you're prepared to have the district ready to go and capture the market, then you're in a good position to achieve those savings. But we don't do anything, we don't incur any costs until the threshold is met and we feel comfortable that we can go into the market and achieve those savings.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd be happy to answer any additional questions, kind of the thought process on the timeline, anything else that you generally may have on some of this data that we just talked about.
What is the rate you think we're going to be looking at when we do this?
Sure. So let's see. You will be likely in the 2.75 to 3% will be the ultimate rate that you'll be at if it proceeds. And you're north of you're about 3.5 to 3.75 on the current COPs. So you get, it's not a, it's a 3/4 of a rate percentage relief in interest rate.
With the projected timeline being till when?
Sure. So the projected timeline of when that would occur, or when the savings you'd realize them.
I guess you'd have to realize the savings.
Right.
Okay, then you would probably move then.
So this is, if you take a look, well, there's a couple things. I'll answer your question. But,
Okay,
so first, you can see on page 5 here, the savings column.
right.
So on the far right, those are the estimated savings you'd receive per year if we can achieve that for 417,000. Those go out to 2033. But as far as the timing of the financing of when this would take place, here's an estimate of kind of what we have here. And it's all going to be driven based upon interest rates and when we can go into the market. So, this could go on, it could all work where if you approve it tonight and the board approves it tomorrow, maybe next week we get some great news and we're going in, the market in 2 weeks to sell them, and then we close in May. It could be 2 months, once another stimulus package may be prepared, and investors like that, and we see these spreads, condense, and we can hop into the market. So there's all kinds of things that'll drive it, and that's the importance of just being prepared to capture it when those occur, rather than delaying another 30 to 45 days of waiting. So yeah, it could be anywhere from May 2020, or it could be maybe even a year from now, or it could never actually materialize, just depending on where rates are.
Yeah.
So what we're doing today, if we approve this, is simply be prepared to make the move when the opportunity presents itself.
That's correct.
Okay, I got it.
Mhm.
And as I mentioned, we won't incur, so the district has yet to incur any costs besides some
Right.
time, and just getting to this point. And where we would incur the cost is once we get the rating for these. And we would not do that unless we think we're within like 2 weeks of moving forward.
Okay.
So that's the expense there, and that's about $15,000 or so. And that rating is good for up to 6 months once you get it.
That was my question, like mortgages. I was wondering if you could lock it in once you got it.
Yeah, that's unfortunately our business doesn't work that way when you're selling bonds in this manner. There is a methodology of which you could do, which we are also just preparing ourselves to take a look at, which is called a private placement, where we would just go to a direct one buyer and just say, what is your rate for this? And why we will continue to look at that still is also a ways away, because banks' cost of funds through these stimulus packages, once they get up and running, that the bank private placement route may be something that materializes sooner than the public sale option, because as banks get cheaper cost of funds through these stimulus packages, they may actually start bidding lower for their funds for these types of credits. So that's something we're going to take a look at. But so in that case, Bill, yes, you can lock in a rate and just get it and move forward and wrap it up. That's one option we're going to look at. And then the other is doing what we've outlined here, which, in advance of this, crisis that we're experiencing, that was the more advantageous and produced a better level of savings to the district. So we'll be taking a look at both options and moving forward under the best case scenario.
Okay.
John, do these documents actually provide for a private placement, or would we need to bring back additional documents for the private placement option?
Yeah, so we'll have to do that because they're different. So we would have to come back with a private placement, but it does allow us to investigate it and then present options to the district, to Matt, for him to make a decision. If he would like to proceed with a private placement, we would come back with the revised documents, but it allows us to actually go out and bid and receive a bid if we wanted to keep it. And then they would lock that in for like 60 days. So we'd have plenty of time to get on your agenda to come back with that if that is a more advantageous option for you.
Okay. Wow.
Pretty interesting times, let me tell you.
Crazy. Yep.
Yeah.
Who would have
everybody's-
thought? Who
everyone's
would have
losing.
thought? Goodness. Okay.
Do we have other questions on the loan documents?
I don't.
I don't either. Pretty
I don't
clear.
have any.
I
So
think
we
I
would-
actually get it.
Nice work, John.
All right.
That's a good thing.
So we do have a resolution that accompanies John's discussion with us for the corporation to consider and approve by roll call vote, assuming we have a motion and a second to support it.
I will make the motion to approve. Do I have to read the whole thing?
I've read it. I think we all have.
Yeah, we have. I
Yeah, I
second.
have it.
Oh,
I'll second the motion.
hey, go ahead.
So, John, I kind of stepped into your lane there for a little while just to reintroduce the fact that we had a resolution, not just the PowerPoint. So,
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. What were you asking for me?
I was saying,
Oh.
no, Bill needs to recognize the motion and the second on the resolution. I was saying that I kind of introduced the resolution, then he made the second. So now he's got to recognize the motion in the second and then ask for the roll call vote.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Can we have a roll call vote?
So Jessica gets to unmute herself and then call out the board members for a roll call vote.
Okay,
And she unmuted herself and then muted herself. There she goes.
There we go. Sorry about that. Okay, so Bill Kennedy,
aye.
Linda Cordero,
Aye.
Dave F. Flores,
Aye.
Matt Beecher.
Aye.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, sounds
All
like we passed that.
Awesome.
Very good.
All right. So you want me to head out now while you conduct your other business, or?
Yeah, you're welcome to stay, but you're also welcome to return to the work you have to do this afternoon.
Yeah, okay. I can hang here for a few more minutes. I got a 4 o'clock that starts, so I'll hang tight.
Okay, sure.
Okay. Put it on mute.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Appreciate your help.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
and Matt, if you can send me the information for tomorrow too, that'd be great.
The information for what? Excuse me?
Tomorrow night, the board meeting tomorrow night, the Zoom.
Right. Yeah, we'll get that to you for sure.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect.
Awesome.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
You.
So congratulations, everyone. That is the first virtual resolution passed in a public meeting in the Santa Maria Bonita School District. So
Wow.
Jessica, thank you for running that vote for us. Yeah. The next item on the agenda that we started with was the review of the audit report. The bylaws for the Capital Facilities Corporation call for an annual meeting like the second week in May or the third week in May or something like that.
Right.
But I figured we'd be all right if we went ahead and wrapped it up in this single meeting and carried the audit report. I'm going to share my screen so you can see the little presentation that I've got to walk us through it so that I don't just ramble aimlessly throughout the audit report. I can kind of scope my conversation to the important parts. So these are the items that are on our agenda today. Let's see if I can do this. There we go. We did that part. And just again to orient the board members to how certificates of participation work. The certificates are secured by lease payments made by the school district for the use of facilities or equipment. And generally COPs are payable out of the district's general fund. There's no new revenue source created outside of the general fund, like a general obligation bond is assessed against properties, and property owners pay a tax on that assessment that's used to pay the debt service. The district has to generate the resource itself for COPs. This is as simple as I've ever seen COPs drawn up. I stole this from Oryx XYZs of California School District Debt Financing. Don Field, who is on our team, is part of the group in Oryx that crafts that language in that book, but this is their diagram. Essentially, the whole process is housed in this section. The school district creates the ground lease to the lessor, and in this situation, the Capital Facilities Corporation is the lessor. And they lease that property back to the school district. The ground lease is for next to nothing or nothing. The lease is for a significant consideration, like dollars amount, millions of dollars a year. That then gets assigned in a trust agreement to create those lease payments that get assigned out. And essentially those lease payments become an investment package that investors are willing to buy at a discount, which creates the proceeds used for a construction project, or in this case, a refinancing And then we make those payments with interest over time to the investors. And we get our cash now and they get their interest earnings over time. So that's how COPs work. As a part of our bylaws, in order to be able to process those transactions, we also review the audit report. So I'll walk you very quickly through these significant pages as they relate to either the audit or in particular pieces to the corporation. So I can't see this because my video piece is over it, but that is the clean opinion where the auditor concludes that our financial statements present fairly in all material respects, the financial position of the government activities. That's as close to a clean bill of health as you get from an auditor. That's how they describe it. They don't say things are perfect. They say that they're presented fairly in all material respects.
Got it.
An interesting piece of information inside of our financial statements is this listing of the top 25 taxpayers. These are large property owners. You may recognize some of the names, but even then with the significant amounts of property they own, you can see how much property tax they pay, which is a lot. But in relation to all the property tax that gets collected in Santa Barbara County and paid in part to the district, it comes to a pretty small percentage overall. This is just a summary of what our outstanding debt is in the school district. Here's the line related to the corporation certificates of participation. At the end of June 30, 2019, there's $32.7 million in outstanding certificates. And the district had paid down about 1.9 or $2 million worth of principal during that fiscal year. So in the financial world, the corporation is known as a component unit, meaning it's its own thing, but it blends in with the rest of the district's activities and is essentially a part of the district and its operations. So this is a lot of words that GASB says we have to use to describe the transaction and the financial reporting entity, which is the district, and the blended unit, which is the corporation. And it talks about the purpose why we do it down here.
Yeah.
So the next big section is the page 28, where we talk about the accounting for the debt and the corporation. So that's in this section here for the capital projects related to the COP. There's a little bit of money left, like less than $1.5 million that we'll probably end up spending on the Measure T school. And then down here at the bottom, we have a debt service fund, which is where the corporation, if you will, makes the principal and interest payments, using the rent that it collects from the district, is the way you would describe the transaction.
And in this particular case, the rent is from Taylor, if I understand the documents.
In the case of the refinancing, I think we were looking at Taylor. We were also looking at Liberty. We ended up wanting to also potentially consider Jimenez instead. It's a newer campus and may be easier to set a value for. Here's the value of the collateral. We're also looking at Bonita, which is like the antithesis in some components of that campus to newer, but the dollar amount is right as far as trying to make sure that the total of the collateral doesn't overwhelm the amount of the debt. You want to have a pretty clean match between the value of the collateral and the value of the debt. So we're also looking at potentially using Bonita. Linda, we may end up swapping that school site out for a different school site.
Okay.
But in the documents, it does talk about Taylor.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that I
Understood?
understood and
Mhm,
actually looked at everything.
Mhm.
mhm,
Linda, we wouldn't doubt that you didn't.
absolutely.
Well, I don't know. It'd be pretty sketchy here.
There was, there was a lot to review this weekend.
There was a lot to review,
Mhm,
I tell you.
a lot of legalese.
mhm, for sure. So the next section talks about the certificates of participation in particular on page 46. It's actually on page 46 and 47. And it just summarizes the different issuances that we have with their outstanding balances. And then it kind of shows the current payment streams for each of them, where you have the new construction COP maturing in 2033 and the refunding COP from 2019 that we did last year in May down here on the bottom,
Right,
maturing in,
okay.
yeah, in this range. We don't have all the years listed. Okay. So as I was reviewing this slide, getting ready for today's meeting, that last bullet forever has been there are no audit findings. And just recently, the state controller's office revised their direction to auditors related to findings, mandating that ASB findings be included in the audit report and not in a separate management letter, which they'd always done. They'd always given us our ASB findings outside of the audit because the informal nature of ASB and that it is somewhat discrete from the district's overall accounting function. And I think what's happened, and all of you probably have noticed, it doesn't seem like you go through 6 months without hearing that some ASB account, clerk or club advisor or someone like that has embezzled money from funds intended to be used to improve, and enrich the students' experience on campus. And so I think that is why we now see in our audit report that there are several ASB findings, and they aren't out of the ordinary, but they are very challenging to try and root out of your system because, again, it's an informal process in a decentralized location. And it's just really hard to get solid procedures all the way out into every school office and every activities office. So I had to change that bullet for today's meeting to say there were several findings related to ASB, and no single one caused great concern for our auditor when he presented the report in December to the school board. And all of them are things that every one of our school site works diligently to try and prevent. And they're still, it's just hard to iron out all those creases that are possible. So that is my summary of the audit report that you all have had a chance to review. I don't know if there are other questions that I can answer related to the report.
I have none.
I have none either.
I'm good. Everything seems fine to me.
Excellent. That is what I had prepared to talk about on the audit report and on our current agenda. So I guess we can go back, see if I can go back to our stop share. There it is right there.
Mhm.
All right. So that's our or my item for the day.
Do we need any type of motion on the review of the audit report?
It's probably an accept. The audit report is presented.
Okay, we have to vote on that? Or Just-
It's not a roll call. I think it's just a
Yeah.
all in favor.
Okay, all in favor that we accept the review of last year's audit report?
Yes,
I,
Aye.
Aye. Okay, good. Anything else, Matt?
No, I think that's it. I think that's it.
I like the way you set this up and the way this worked, and you had all those slides done. You did some work.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure. I appreciate you all submitting yourself to this experiment. I have to thank Brian Rickey, our coordinator for technology, who has been working on this for all of about 4 days to 5 days to iron this out.
bless his heart. I know.
I know, right?
I know. I think the only issue I had, I'm on an Apple. And so I had to actually download, and I started to go on this whole thing about 10 minutes after 3, because it hit me about 3 o'clock. I'm on an Apple. I'm not just on an HP or a plain Chromebook or anything like that. And I think that's what took me just a little longer to get on there. So I have the actual cookies or whatever the heck they call them, but now they're on there. So hopefully tomorrow it won't be an issue.
See, that's why we did this today. Exactly
I
that
know.
reason. Perfect.
Perfect.
well,
But no,
it seemed to work perfectly from my end. I had
Yeah,
no
all I did-
problems.
All I did was click on the little button there and it came up.
Yep.
no, there's always something on my end. That's just my life. Yeah.
Well, I got a message from Luke during the meeting. He says that the broadcast on YouTube is working really well. Looks really nice. So from
Okay.
the standpoint of making this meeting available to the public, it's out there and it works as a presentation.
Very nice.
So is this how we'll do it tomorrow night as well?
Yeah. So tomorrow night, I think it'll be very similar. You'll log in to a different link that Brian has sent you or will send you. The John Barrissey and his team will also get links to participate. They'll be in at the beginning of the meeting and then probably out when their item is done. The public participation component will be either emails that we've received to read in. And I don't know that there's going to be any local participation from the public comment section, but I haven't been involved in that whole piece. I think Dr. Grady will get a login as well. So she'll be able to participate as John Barrissey did today. So we'll get to see her in a similar fashion. And John Hollinshead will be here in the boardroom
Right.
to administer the meeting. So
Oh, okay.
it'll be the
Yeah.
exact same Zoom setup with a link out to YouTube to broadcast it. It'll be the exact same setup.
All right.
And I see though, we do have a closed session at 5:30. 5:30 to 6 o'clock. So I'm assuming that'll be closed until 6 o'clock, and at 6 o'clock, everything will open up for the public.
Yeah, we won't have the broadcast component turned on if there's
Okay.
closed session.
Well, that's what it says up here. I just wanted to make sure.
Mhm.
Okay, sounds like a plan.
Awesome.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
All right,
everyone.
Thank you, Bill.
Oh,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you. Thank
All
you.
right.
Okay, all
Bye, everybody.
Stay
Bye.
safe.
Yep.
right, everybody stay
Bye.
safe. Good to see everybody.
Yeah, nice seeing you all.
See you
See you
again.
next year.
All
Yeah.
right, on to the next. All right,
On to the-
bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.